everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Alex and today I am bringing you my March wrap up. Now, March was the longest month of my entire life. It has just felt like it has been an insane amount of time in the month of March, and I think that a lot of other people have felt that way as well, especially with this COVID-19. Everybody is trying to self-quarantine. We have been pretty much self-isolated in our apartment for I think close to 2 weeks now. I'm not sure the exact day that we started, but we have gotten out very, very rarely. But that has luckily left me with a lot of time to read, and I have wound up actually finishing 19 books in the month of March. Now, as per usual, I have already wrapped up a good number of these in my mid-March wrap-up, so I will leave a card up above if you have not seen that already, but you will definitely want to go over and check that out, as I have already reviewed 8 of the books that I read in March, and I'm not going to be re-summarizing them here. So today's video is going to be a long one. Grab your drink, grab your snack, whatever you need to do, and if you are new here and you're not already, please be sure to go down and hit the subscribe button as well as the bell icon down below so that you never miss out on any of my content. And without further ado, let's get started. So I am going to start out quickly giving you guys some stats about everything that I read throughout the month of March. So as far as sources go, where I actually picked up all of these books from, 3 books I got from my physical library and 10 books I picked up through the Libby app. 2 books came from Scribd. 1 was a book that I already owned. 2 books were e-arcs from NetGalley, and 1 book was a book that was gifted to me. As far as age range, I wound up reading 2 middle grades, 4 YAs, and 13 adult. I don't think that has ever happened. I don't think I've ever gotten that many adult reads in a month. As far as formats go, how did I actually pick these books up? 4 of them were physical books, 6 were ebooks, and 9 were audiobooks. For genres, we were a little bit all over the place, but as you can probably guess, contemporary came out on top with 7. I also read 2 fantasy and 1 historical fiction, 4 sci-fi, 2 mystery, 2 nonfiction, and 1 anthology. And finally, as far as ratings go, we actually had a pretty good month. I had nothing under 3 stars. I wound up with 2 3-star reads, 4 3.5-star reads, 7 4-star reads, 4 4.5-star reads, and 2 5-star reads. So that is it as far as the statistics. And now I'm gonna quickly name the 8 books that I've already talked about in my mid-March wrap-up. So if you haven't watched that yet, leave and go watch it first. I'm about to tell you how I rated all of them. So I started out with The June Boys by Court Stevens, which I rated a 4 out of 5 stars. Dear Edward by Anne Napolitano, which I rated 5 out of 5 stars. Sleeping Giants by Sylvain Neuvel, which I gave a 4.5 out of 5 stars. The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars. Still Life by Louise Penny, which I gave a 3.5 out of 5 stars. The Romance Book Club by Lisa K. Adams, which I gave a 4.5 out of 5 stars. The Test by Sylvain Neuvel, which I gave a 4.5 out of 5 stars. And Becoming by Michelle Obama, which I gave a 5 out of 5 stars. After that, the first book that I completed was Seriously I'm Kidding by Ellen DeGeneres. Now, this one's kind of hard for me to actually tell you what it's about because it is not at all a memoir. It doesn't follow Ellen throughout her life. I believe this is like the 3rd book that she put out, but it is strictly for the entertainment value. So there are just some little funny anecdotes, some little things that she's picked up throughout her life, and it's just literally just for humor. So that I did enjoy, and I liked listening to it on audio. It was narrated by Ellen, and I enjoyed my time listening to it. I just don't think that it's necessary reading unless you're just a huge fan of Ellen DeGeneres. Again, I appreciated it. It was really quick. I think the audiobook was only about 3 hours long, so it was a speedy one to get through and add to my list, but would I read it again? No. Do I think you have to read it? No. But if you're looking for something funny, you might enjoy it. Short review on that one because it's a short book and I just don't have a ton to say about it, but I did wind up giving it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. After that, I completed A Tale for the Time Being by Ruth Ozeki. Now, this book is told in dual perspectives. So first we follow our main character Now, who is 16 years old and is living in Japan, and she is writing a diary. So all of her chapters are in diary entries, and she has had a really rough life. She grew up in America, and her dad was in the tech industry, but then when the dot-com bubble burst, they wound up having to move back to Japan. She's having a lot of issues with her family, and there's a lot of trigger warnings in here for suicide, so just be aware of that as you are reading it. And Now plans to document the life of her grandmother, who is a Buddhist nun. Now, in the midst of all of this, there was a giant tsunami in Japan that really impacted a lot of people and came and washed everything away. And Now's diary winds up getting washed onto the shores of Canada, where we meet Ruth, who is our second perspective. She finds Now's diary and winds up reading it. We get to go with Ruth as she's reading the diary throughout the novel and then just living her life in general in Canada. Now, this was an interesting read. I really did not care about Ruth's perspective for the majority of the novel, and I liked Now's parts, but they were harder to read. There were also a lot of parts in this book where I feel like the author was being really existential and trying to reach some big point, and it just went way over my head, to be honest. I didn't really care about any of that stuff. I just wanted to get back to Now and her experiences with her great-grandmother, and that part of it was interesting, but the rest I didn't really care about. This is one that I feel like you need to be in the mood for literary fiction if you're going to read this. And it's one that I think a ton of people have really proclaimed, and it's been heavily praised, and I can understand why, but I just didn't particularly care for it. So maybe that's a salty opinion, but that's how I feel. I wound up giving it a 3 out of 5 stars. Next, I picked up Love from A to Z by S.K. Ali. So this book follows our two main characters, Zeneb and Adam, and they are strangers at the beginning of the novel, but they are both on their way to Doha in Qatar for their spring break, and they wind up meeting, forming a friendship, falling in love. Now, a couple of the things that I did like in this novel, there is definitely a lot of talk about Islamophobia, and I really appreciated the way that that was handled throughout the novel, and it gave a new perspective that I am personally not familiar with, so I really appreciated that part of the novel. And additionally, Adam has been diagnosed with MS, or multiple sclerosis, so we get to see him battling with this diagnosis and what it's going to mean for him in his future. I really enjoyed that part of it as well. However, in general, this book was really underwhelming for me, just overall. The title, Love from A to Z, really makes you think that it's going to be completely a romance, and I felt that the romance really took a back seat to a lot of the other things that were happening. And so while I did appreciate the novel as a whole, I really wish that it had been marketed differently or maybe given a different title, because this does not feel like a romance novel. The romance was definitely not in the forefront of the novel, and I felt like the book could have even done without a romance, and I felt like the other portions about the Islamophobia and about MS were more impactful to me, and I cared more about them than I did about the romance. So I feel like if this book had been marketed differently, not as a romance, just maybe as a contemporary, I would have appreciated it more. But overall, this book was just okay, kind of middle of the road for me, and I wound up giving it a 3 out of 5 stars. Next, I listened to Waking Gods by Sylvain Nouvelle. This is the second book in the Themis Files trilogy. Obviously, I can't give you any kind of summary, synopsis, because it is the second book in a trilogy. But the first book takes place in a world where this girl named Ruth winds up falling into this giant hand one day when she is, I think, 11 years old. And she winds up growing up to be a scientist, and she is in charge of finding out where this hand came from. Are there other body parts? What are these people trying to tell us? Yada, yada. So Waking Gods is the second book in the trilogy, and it's just a straight continuation from the first book. Now, this book was just as addictive as the first one in the series. I absolutely love the audiobooks for these, so if you plan to read the series and want to listen to them, that's definitely what I recommend. It is a full cast of narrators, and they all do a wonderful job. It's just like listening to a movie. It's incredible. There are such cool action scenes. There are amazing plot twists. The characters just suck you in. This is top-notch sci-fi, in my opinion. I don't read a ton of sci-fi, but this is one of the better ones that I've read. Totally loved it. This one also ended with a big plot twist, just like the first one did, and it propelled me right into the third book as well. Really enjoyed this one. I wound up giving it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read What I Like About Me by Jenna Guillaume, and this one published on April 1st. I got an e-arc of it through NetGalley. This book follows 16-year-old Maisie, and it is summer throughout the novel, but she has been assigned to keep a journal throughout the summer as part of her school assignment, and she goes on vacation, but she is not really sure how her summer is gonna go. She thinks it's gonna be pretty bad because her dad is not coming with them. She has a really gorgeous older sister that kind of shakes her confidence, and she finds out that her best friend is flirting with the guy that she likes, and it's all just proving to be a really horrible summer. But Maisie winds up getting word of this beauty pageant that she wants to join, and it kind of turns things around, and she grows from there. Now, I feel like this is a story that it's not the most unique, it's not the most nuanced, but it definitely is entertaining and fun. So if you have a younger YA reader in your life, I feel like they would really enjoy this one. I definitely appreciated the way that the friendships were handled, and even because there are friends that are not the best to each other, but they come back together in the end, and those things are handled really well. And I also feel like we got to watch this main character really blossom into her own and discover why she is great the way that she is. So that was definitely something that I feel would be impactful to a younger YA audience. But if you are already a fan of YA contemporary and you've read a lot of it, you may find the story predictable, maybe not the most unique, but regardless, definitely a solid YA contemporary if you are looking for that. I'll end up giving this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next, I picked up Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo, and this is the second book in the Shadow and Bone trilogy. Now again, I can't say a ton about the summary synopsis of this because it is the second book in a series, but I feel like a ton of people have already read and loved this. It is set in Leigh Bardugo's Grishaverse, so it's Six of Crows, Crooked Kingdom, it's all in the same universe, and this is the second book in the original trilogy. Now, I really enjoyed the first installment in this series, and this was definitely a solid conclusion, but it didn't wow me quite as much as the first one did. From what I have heard from other people about this series, everybody loves the Darkling, and I don't understand that yet. Hopefully, maybe something will happen in the third book where I kind of get it, but he's just kind of there for me. I don't really particularly like him or dislike him. I haven't fallen in love with him as a lot of people seem to have done, but oh well. I feel like in general, this book did have a little bit of that second book slump where you have a really good first book and the second book is mediocre and then the third book is really good, but there is a lot that's going to have to be wrapped up in the third installment, so I'm hoping that it all comes to fruition. Hopefully, I'll be able to read Ruin and Rising in April or May and go ahead and wrap up this trilogy. I wound up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. After that, I completed Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban by J.K. Rowling. This is obviously the third book in the Harry Potter series. This is one that I was really looking forward to getting into because I know a ton of people have said that this is their favorite book in the series, and after a reread, I can definitely understand why. I really liked getting back into this world, and I love the whole subplot with Hermione's time turner. I just thought that that was hilarious and a fun thing to add into this. I, of course, also loved getting our first glimpses into Hogsmeade and getting to meet Sirius Black, so overall, I had a really fun time reading this one. I finished it a little bit earlier in the month because I actually stuck to my 1 chapter a day rule. That's probably not going to happen with Goblet of Fire, but you know, we're going to get to that when we get to that. Regardless, this one was wonderful and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Next, I wound up picking up Song for a Whale by Lynn Kelly. Now for this one, I have to give a big thank you to Elise from Elise Reason Speaks. I've heard her talk about this book multiple times on her channel. My library had it and I really wanted to give it a try, see what it was about, and I'm so glad that I did. Now, this is a middle grade novel that follows our main character, Iris, and Iris is deaf, and she winds up hearing about this whale named Blue 55, who his song is at a completely different decibel level than the normal whale song. So when he sings and nobody hears him, he can't hear any other whales, and he doesn't go towards any other whales because they can't communicate. So Iris really connects with this whale, and she winds up trying to go on a mission to connect with him for real. Now, this was just such a fun story. I wound up reading it just in one afternoon. It is quick, it is heartwarming and wholesome. So if you're looking for a good middle grade or you have a middle grade person in your life that you want to pass on a book to, this is definitely one that I would recommend. Again, if you want a more in-depth review, head over to Elise's channel, and I think probably in one of her favorites videos she has talked about this one, but I can definitely understand why she has loved it so much. I highly enjoyed it. It was a very solid middle grade, adorable characters. You do have to kind of suspend your disbelief at a couple of points, but if you're willing to do that, it is definitely an interesting ride that I think that you'll really enjoy. I'll end up giving this one a 4 out of 5 stars. Next, I listened to Only Human by Sylvain Nouvelle, and this is the third and final book in the Themis Files trilogy. Yes, I read an entire series this month. I'm really proud of myself for that. Now again, this one just picks up where the second book left off and gives us a wrap up of the series, and I will say, I feel like this is most people's opinion. This, while I enjoyed it, it was my least favorite book in the series. I just felt like it did not grip me as much as the other novels did. We did wind up losing a couple of characters in the second novel, and I really missed them in the third novel, and I feel like it just wasn't the same without them. We didn't get a ton of the big action scenes that really propelled me through the first 2 novels. I still, like I said, very much enjoyed it, liked the plot moving forward, absolutely loved the audiobook and the production value, but just the storyline in general didn't grip me as much as the whole rest of the series did. But overall, for this whole trilogy, I definitely think this is a really good one if you're looking for a gateway into sci-fi, or if you are into sci-fi and have somehow missed out on this, you need to pick it up. This last one I wound up giving a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was The Honey Don't List by Christina Lauren. This is a really new release. It just came out on March 24th. So this book follows our main character, Carrie, and she is the assistant to this celebrity couple named Melissa and Rusty Tripp. They are essentially like Chip and Joanna Gaines. They are this fun, loving celebrity couple that is taking the design world by storm, and Carrie is Melissa's assistant. Well, Melissa and Rusty have a wonderful relationship on the outside, but on the inside, things are really really falling apart. They cannot stand each other, but they have just released a new book on marriage and they are about to go on a book tour for it. So Carrie winds up getting roped in to make sure that these two don't kill each other. We also get to meet our other main character, James, who is Rusty's assistant, and he is also getting roped into this. So Carrie and James wind up inevitably falling in love. Now, here is my issue with Christina Lauren. You guys know that The Unhoneymooners by them was one of my favorite books of 2019 and is still one of my favorite books of all time. I absolutely adored that one. But I have read 3 other books by Christina Lauren besides The Honeymooners, and all of them have been mediocre at best. Sadly, this one was the same case. It was just okay. I really did enjoy the sections with Melissa and Rusty, but I could have cared less about Carrie and James, which are supposed to be our 2 main characters. I feel like the romance between them was not very believable. One minute they really didn't like each other, and the next minute they were in bed together, and it was just completely unrealistic to me. Also felt like there were times when Carrie and James kind of betrayed each other, and that reasoning was not really solid enough for me to get behind it and to be really torn. And then they wound up reconciling really, really fast afterwards, which again was totally unbelievable, and it made me just not get behind the romance that much more. So I'm really sad to say that I did not enjoy this one that much, and I really want to continue on with Christina Lauren. There are a couple more of their plots that sound interesting to me. Like, I really want to read autobiography from them, which I know is a YA, so maybe that one will be a little bit different. I don't really know. I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. If you have any recommendations for other Christina Laurens that I might like, let me know, because I really, really want to like them, but so far it's just pretty much been a miss. And finally, the last book that I completed in the month of March was Roar by Cecilia Ahern. Now, this is actually an anthology short story collection from this author that contains 30 stories all about women. So actually, it's a weird story behind this. I was at the library at the end of February looking for the Bromance Book Club, and while I was in the A section of authors, my son actually reached up and pulled this book off the shelf and he said, "What about this one, Mommy?" And I looked at it, I had never heard of it before, and it just so happened to be this book. It was a short story collection about women right before Women's History Month, and it just felt like the best bookish serendipity. So I decided that I had to bring it home and take it with me, and I was going to read a story every day because there were 30 stories, and that is what I did. I really, really enjoyed doing it that way. These stories are very varied, and you get a lot of different perspectives about different issues that women have to go through. It was really, really interesting. Obviously, some of the stories I enjoyed more than others, and in general, to be completely honest, I don't think that this is going to wind up being one that's particularly memorable to me. Maybe just because there are so many different stories to keep track of. Maybe I might hang on to 1 or 2 in my head, but overall, I feel like it is going to be pretty forgetful. But regardless, I really, really enjoyed my time reading this, especially during Women's History Month. Getting to read a book all about women and putting women's issues in the forefront was just really well-timed and really nice for me. So if you are a fan of short story collections or anthologies, or you're just looking for something in that vein, I would definitely recommend this one. It was really, really nice to be able to spread it out over the entire month, but you definitely don't have to do that. This book is less than 300 pages long, so if you just wanted to chunk it in maybe a week and take it that way, you could totally do it however you wanted to. Regardless, I really enjoyed this one. And I wound up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars overall. So that is everything that I completed in the month of March. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and let me know what your favorite book of March was. As always, if you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to go down and give it a big thumbs up, as well as hitting the subscribe button and the bell icon down below so that you never miss out on any of my content. So until next time, bye!